I feel like this is one of those situations where a piece of gear drops that is truly just tailor-made for our audience.
Yep.
And this was very interesting because I had been thinking about doing a video explaining Ed Sheeran's looping setup. And by the time I put it out, the very next day, all that scrapped because he's come out with this new line of things.
Obsoleted.
This week, Ed Sheeran released his own signature line of looping pedals, and they're pretty phenomenal. The feature set and the general user interface stuff is really impressive. For those of you who don't know the whole backstory, Ed Sheeran has been playing clubs, stadiums, whatever, with this really innovative looping setup. Now, his main deal is basically just software on top of Ableton Live, and he's got these really cool controllers that basically give him the visual readouts that he needs in order to do what he does. Well, he's now come out with a physical hardware unit, 2 different models that mimic the workflow that he uses. And he's done demos with the new stuff, and it's really, really cool.
Yeah, it's really well done. It's really good.
Yeah, so 2 models. We've got the entry level and then the big daddy. Both of these are made through HeadRushFX, by the way. They're the ones helping develop the back end. So all of these features are things that are coming from HeadRush. Entry-level model is called the Looper Plus, and it retails for $299, but it's got a lot of really great features for something this size and price point. So it's a 2-channel input. It's got visual readouts around this rotary encoder. It's got a little LED display. It can hold, I think, 3+ hours of audio internally. It's got stereo outs, external foot switch. I mean, the feature set and stuff is just outrageous. They do literally everything. But this one is kind of the more simplified, basic deal. It would be, I would say, a pretty solid step up from something like a Ditto, where you have a bit more control over things.
Or even the 2-pedal Boss, loop station. It's a more refined version of that.
For sure. It's probably the one that they'll sell the most of, but it's not necessarily the one that we got the most excited over. Because the main one, the one that is kind of the biggest deal, is what they're calling Looper X. And Looper X is a Helix-sized looping setup, which doesn't necessarily replace the HeadRush looping station that they already have. That being said, I don't know any place that sells those.
No, I think they're actually out of print. Those ones, I think they're out of manufacture.
Yeah. So this is kind of their next wave. But it is specifically a design that looks like what Ed Sheeran already does. So this is not just a restamp of an existing product. This is very unique to itself.
Discontinued is the word I was looking for. Discontinued.
Yes.
The pedals don't go out of print.
Yeah. They turn the presses off.
That's right.
So this one is a 4-channel looper. We got 8 pedals. We've got a 7-inch touchscreen display, which everybody knows HeadRush is kind of famous for. Tons of I/O. You've got stereo outputs that can be used as stereo, split, dual mono, headphones, MIDI in and out, USB in and out, just all kinds of stuff. And the thing that I really like about both of these units is the visual readouts that you get. Now, on the Looper Plus, on the left side above the record button is this rotary encoder. And it's got a light around it. And when you are doing recording and playback, does the progress through the LED on the rotary encoder. So you have that visual readout. Looper X gives you the setup that you might have seen Ed Sheeran have. When you start recording something, it shows the waveform going in so that you know that your levels are good. You can switch views where it's got different meters for every single track. It's really phenomenal. And we haven't even gotten into the functionality or the stuff that's in it. This is just the baseline. The feature list in this thing is outrageous.
It is.
And there was some specific stuff that you really were excited about that kind of gave you pause about what you're currently using.
Well, I mean, for my acoustic setup, first of all, looping was something I intended to get really amazing at during the pandemic, and I never did. So I'm not speaking as a looper in particular. I'd like to be one. Yeah, it's a very, very cool skill that I don't have.
Yeah.
But I do have a vocal pedal, I mentioned earlier in the forum, that is part of my basic setup for acoustic. I don't use it as much with the band, but I do go through it. I route through it just because it's part of my setup. But I use harmonies. I use effects of various types. I use, I think I have some pitch correction on, but I don't think it's doing much for me these days. I think I'm fairly solid. But a lot of that stuff is in this pedal. So could it be a thing that could replace that whole vocal pedal board? Maybe. I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. So as far as the onboard effects, they have 29 different pedal effects: chorus, distortion, delay, reverb, modulation, and then there are what they're calling built-in multi-effects racks. So you basically comes with all the presets for what they're calling common rig layouts. And there's actually an Ed Sheeran one that has his signal chain, the thing that he uses live. And it includes all of the vocal stuff. So yeah, you're getting harmony, pitch correction, reverbs, and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
It is very much an all-in-one deal. It would be cool if it had some amps, because even Ed Sheeran has started using electric guitars for part of his stuff. And we're real close, though. And the fact of the matter is that, I mean, HeadRush has it, so
right.
They could literally, snap their fingers and put them in there. So lots to be excited about. The only thing that isn't exciting is the price tag on this thing.
Yeah.
It's also apparently very large. It's about the size of a full-size Helix from what I've been told.
Yeah.
But the retail on this is $1,299, so a full $1,000 more than the entry-level one. Personally, I think it's going to be a home run.
I think the small one will be.
I think the big one will sell, surprisingly.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Because if you're looking at two pieces of gear, I mean, right now, I've got that Voice Live GTX. I could sell that for whatever I want because they don't make them anymore.
Right.
They're out of print, as you
yes.
said. So $1,299 for something like this, if I did a ton of solo work and was really into looping, that's an easy yes.
Yeah.
Because frankly, there's nothing on the market that offers this workflow. And frankly, it is one of the best workflows out there.
Yeah.
Like everything is laid out very intuitively. The digital readouts, I think it's a slam dunk crap.
Well,
sure.
The one criticism is the number of tracks. There are products on the market that have more tracks than that and more flexibility in terms of their layering and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that's a fair critique. Sheeran's main setup is 8 channels, and this being 4. I think a lot of people were hoping it would be 6.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would kind of justify the price point. But again, this being a new product and what it does offer, I'm willing to potentially look the other way.
Sure. These days you buy these things and you're committing to an ecosystem and a life cycle of upgrades and all that kind of stuff. So I got room for it not to be the full bird right out the gate.
Listen, this is the third HeadRush video we've made, or podcast we've had.
I know.
In the past 6 months.
I know. They're really coming on strong. We're still looking at the Core and the Prime. Those are still really compelling offerings.
And people seem to like them.
Yep.
The comments on the YouTube versions of those conversations is glowing. So good on them.